everyone, my name is Bethany and you're watching a 5-minute review for Writing Werewolf. This week's review is on Dyrwolf by Kinney. So Kat very kindly reached out and asked me to review her book. She gave me a free copy. So basically the concept behind Dyrwolf is that there are two sort of villages next to each other. There's one village and one, I think it's like a city. They refer to it. They only refer to it as the colony, and basically the colony is taken over by direwolves, which are like shapeshifters who can turn into wolves. So they're kind of werewolves because it is tied to the moon, but at the same time they can kind of shift whenever they want. It depends how strong of a wolf they are. There's like different like bloodlines and stuff like that. So basically you have Leah, who belongs to the village, which is which consists of humans, formed their own sort of settlement outside of the colony, away from the direwolves, because the direwolves were enslaving humans. There's a lot of like history and conflict and violence in between these two settlements. At the beginning of this book, you have Leah trying to join the insurgency, which is like a sort of like a rebellion group, and it doesn't end so well. She ends up going through the woods one day, and she comes across a direwolf, and he's injured, and she makes a deal with him because she's disabled. She ends up with lots of like debilitating migraines. So in exchange for taking this direwolf back to the colony, she manages to get him to agree to release her without capturing her, like release her and just let her go, and B, find a cure for her headache. Have this sort of blossoming relationship between Leah and Henrik, and it's a bit like Romeo and Juliet in that they're from two different sides and they're not supposed to. It's kind of like forbidden love, I guess. And at the same time you have like this sort of like rebellion sort of aspect of it. You've got that sort of storyline. I really loved this book. Like it was just so like heart. I just wanted to keep reading it. It was so good. The first thing I loved was the language. The prose was just absolutely, it was just so poetic. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Like there were, I think I highlighted some of it. And you've got, descriptions like metaphors like ice scoring the rooftop with brittle fingernails, and more description: run until the endless spray of stars was kissed by the first streaks of pink in the morning sky calling me home. I wear him like a pelt made of wolf boy. And it's just so absolutely beautiful. Like the language in this book is just incredible to read. I mean, Kat Kinney is just like the most gifted, talented author, because that, like, I can't produce prose that good ever. It's just, it was just an absolute delight to read. I really like the interactions between, like, the history and the interactions between the colony and the village, and sort of the conflicts that came from that, even within the village itself, without giving too much away. I don't want to say too much spoilers or anything like that. The thing where, without giving too many spoilers away, Leah is not the typical, like, chosen one. Like, Leah's not, like, overpowered. Like, she has no powers or anything like that. So she's practically the opposite of a chosen one. Like, she goes on this journey that she doesn't intend to go on, sort of dragged along, purely going for her own benefit, because all she wants is like a solution to these headaches, and she ends up sort of caught in the middle of everything, but at the same time she is brave and she is stubborn, and it's just, she was a fantastic protagonist. Honestly, she was one of the best protagonists I've seen in like a long time. I mean, the cultures of the cultures, like the direwolf and human cultures here, had obviously been like planned down to the most like minute detail, and that came across so well, and I really enjoyed it. There were a couple of like things that weren't, like, I gave it 4 stars out of 5 because there were a few things that sort of like they didn't really prevent me, but they sort of like impacted my enjoyment of it. So like the pacing was a little off in places. For the most part it was really good. The timing wasn't exactly clear, and I sort of like, I couldn't really follow it. I had to just sort of skim over it, if that makes sense. Like my brain just went, okay, that happened, let's move on to something that I know when, and like, where, like, this is like a tangible place and time that I know that I can go to, if that makes sense. I also thought there was, without spoiling anything, the direwolves have, like, if depending on how strong the bloodline is, they have like magic powers, and some are rarer than others. But this didn't come in until like halfway through the book, or like something like a third of the way into the book. And given that all the world building and all the descriptions of the Dire had happened like right at the very beginning, it seemed very sudden. Like that would just be sort of like thrown in. Like there was like a couple of like hints of it beforehand, but there was nothing explicitly said. So when it came in, it kind of like took me a bit by surprise, and I was a bit like, oh, okay, this seems a bit strange. I mean, it worked out in the end, so that was fine. But I was a bit sort of taken aback at that, I guess. I have to say again how absolutely stunning the prose was. Like I was, I think the only thing that I could compare it to, it was the night Erin Morgenstern's like The Night Circus and the Starless Sea. Like it was that good. The Starless Sea is my second favorite book that I've ever read, purely because the prose is so stunningly beautiful. And honestly, Dyrwolf was up there. Dyrwolf is, I would say, possibly had such beautiful. I just can't get over the I wear him like a pelt of wolf boy. Like that is, it just does things to me, and I can't like explain how or why, but it was just so good. And if you're into, you know, like poetic prose, if you enjoyed like the Raven Boys, like the sort of the style of writing in the Raven Boys, you'll love this. And it's just, oh, that was just the absolute highlight for me. It was honestly a joy to read. That is the end of this 5-minute review. Don't know what time it will actually be, but hopefully it will be about 5 minutes. If you enjoyed it, I have a playlist of other 5-minute reviews that I've done. I will link it at the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, maybe consider subscribing. This review will be posted in full on my blog at writingwerewolf.wordpress.com, which I will link below. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at writingwerewolf and at writingwerewolf.reads respectively. And I highly recommend you read this book. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later.